Hello and welcome to That Nerd Thing, where we uncover the magical impact that fandoms have on our lives. I'm Morgan, and one of my favorite things about hosting this podcast is that I get to talk to people about so many different sorts of nerdy things. And today I'm really excited because I get to talk to an author, because I know it's a lot of work to actually write a book, and the fact that I'm getting to talk to somebody who has written 2 books that are really good. I'm still reading the first one. I'm halfway through. I was really hoping I would finish it by today, but that's okay. This will be a spoiler-free episode. But I would love to welcome the author of the Fynneas Fog series, Brooklyn Quintana. Welcome, Brooklyn.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. And we don't have to get into too much of the details, but it was so funny to find out how we have, it's kind of a small world, and we have a connection in a way that I never would have expected.
Right? I know when it came up, I was like, oh, that's so serendipitous that kind of worked out that way. And I'm happy that reaching out to you really worked out for, I think, both of us, hopefully.
Oh, yeah. I'm so excited you're here. And your book is really good. And I saw you were featured in the Fantasy Fangirls newsletter, which is a really big deal. I was really in awe when I saw that.
Well, first off, thank you so much. I had reached out to them and they were doing their Fourth Wing podcast. And I was like, hey, I do a fantasy series. I'm on book 3 right now, and I'm trying to get the word out there some more. And they were so nice. They're like, we're really doing deep dives right now, especially with, like I said, Fourth Wing. But they were starting that newsletter, and they were so gracious enough to put 9 of Swords on there. And it was, I couldn't have asked for anything more. It was really nice of them. They're a cool podcast. I listen to them as well.
Awesome. Yeah, they're amazing. I like to start out asking questions to get an idea of your nerdy identity. Are you ready?
I'm totally ready.
What was the first thing that you were nerdy about?
I got to get more comfortable saying it because I shouldn't be ashamed, because it's definitely, I think it's cool. I was like a big anime kid, and especially like shonen, punch 'em up type of friendship is the key to everything type animes were my bag. And I think a lot of those tropes and ideas and through lines and everything really found their way into my work. So I don't think I ever really grew out of that anime phase of my life.
Oh, that's amazing. Do you have a favorite anime?
I was a Dragon Ball Z kid when I was little. Obviously, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, those were all really big when I was in elementary school. I think now I don't get a chance to watch as much because I'm working all the time. But Inuyasha was always a favorite of mine. It really made me fall in love with Japan and mythology. And you actually learn a lot watching it too, I think. Learning while being entertained is great.
I wasn't typically an anime fan, but then I was like, well, wait a second. I would watch Pokemon and Sailor Moon, and I guess that's anime, right?
That totally qualifies. Yeah. I mean, that's the stuff that made it over to the West when we were younger. Those were like gateway animes, I think, for a lot of people in our generation. And I mean, who doesn't love Sailor Moon?
I know. What is your favorite nerdy thing?
My favorite nerdy thing? Oh, what a good question. Probably Harry Potter.
Oh, really?
I'm a big, I don't know if you can see it. So I've got like my chocolate frog over here somewhere.
Yeah.
Wands, Felix Felicis. I've got some Polyjuice. I've got behind me, you can't see it above my head, I got a whole Slytherin section. I'm a snake for life. So that's definitely probably my favorite and the most impactful nerdy thing kind of going on with me.
Yeah, I used to always say I was a Gryffindor, but the reality is I'm not. I'm a Hufflepuff, and it took me a long time to come to terms with that, but now I'm a proud Hufflepuff. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, definitely go check out the show on YouTube, because Brooklyn has an amazing background. It's very inspirational. I'm hoping to have a background like that one day. I love it.
Thank you so much.
I love the colors too.
Thank you. I try to not think about the red being Gryffindor colors. But yeah, no, my parents and I built this whole library. It's like a floor to ceiling thing, and there's another one on the other wall. So I've got a lot of books, and I'm actually running out of space even on these shelves. So maybe books is also my super nerdy thing I'm into.
Yeah. Well, that would make sense.
I know, right? I mean, true. But, weirdly enough, not fantasy book.
Oh, really?
I knew Fourth Wing's really big, ACOTAR, all the Sarah J. Maas books are going on right now, especially on Book Talk. But I try and stay away from 99% of fantasy just because I don't want it to impact how I'm writing or my story. So really the only fantasy I take in at this point is just rereads of Harry Potter, and those are just like a comfort read at this point.
That's interesting. So what is your favorite genre?
I really like nonfiction. I really like history. So reading about ancient Rome, specifically the Julio-Claudian family from Julius Caesar up until Nero, I think is a really interesting span of time. And there's no greater soap opera than the Roman ruling families. And I just think it's like absolutely insane, and not enough attention is shed on that specific couple decades of history. Everybody always wants to focus on medieval times or Spartans or something, but the Julio-Claudians, man, they're a mess, and it's wonderful.
So that's so interesting that you're not really a fan of reading fantasy. When your book, would you say it's fantasy?
I would definitely say it's a hardcore fantasy. I mean, book 1 is probably lower fantasy, but as you get into book 2 and then especially book 3, it hits high fantasy. Yeah, I just don't want the other books to impact what I'm doing. Obviously for work, I'm on Book Talk a lot, BookTube. I'm scrolling through Goodreads like a psycho just all the time. And I don't want what like Rebecca Yarros or Sarah J. Maas is doing to really be on my radar. I'm aware obviously of their existence. How could you not be? But I don't want to hold myself like I'm competing with them, and I don't want to compare our books. I think they're very, very different, and I just don't want kind of what they're doing to influence what I'm doing. I want to just try and keep myself as original as possible.
That seems like a lot of pressure.
It's definitely stressful, especially when people do reviews on Goodreads and they say, oh, this is Harry Potter and Game of Thrones mixed. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I like both of those things, and I can see where you get those influences, and obviously having read them, especially Harry Potter as a child, there are certain things that stick with you and things that I really like that I incorporated in my own work, but I don't think it's a one-to-one comparison in any way.
Oh, yeah, I would definitely agree. As I was reading it, it definitely feels like its own work.
Thank you. I tried. I thought the fantasy genre needed like a tropical sprucing up. Everybody's always in like vaguely British settings. So tropical jungle island seemed unique.
That is unique.
Yeah, I don't think I can remember a book coming out, at least recently, that had an archipelago setting full of like crazy vines that were kidnapping children or anything like that. I had a review the other day that said it was like Lord of the Flies. And I was like, you know what? I'll take that comparison.
Yeah.
That's cool.
What are you currently nerdy about?
I probably am currently nerdy about music. I grew up playing classical piano, so I've always been really into music. My grandma got me into listening to things like Tchaikovsky and Rachmaninoff and things. And I find that music is very helpful when I'm writing. I associate the different characters with different instruments. So sometimes when I'm stuck and, you know, it's a Holland heavy chapter, I'll turn on a song that has like really strong violins in it, usually like Vivaldi's The Four Seasons. I kind of associate with that character, and I associate Finn more with drums or like a horn section. It's a more bombastic, aggressive sound. I've really dove into a love of music more so in the past couple of years. I just finished reading a book about the invention of the modern electric guitar, and I don't play the guitar, but I could tell you everything about Fender versus Les Paul at this point. I just think it's fascinating, and music is just so transformative for a lot of people.
That's so cool. Are you writing down what you're listening to as you're writing so that you can maybe put out a playlist?
So I have a bunch of Spotify playlists. I would be mortified if anybody ever found what was going on them. But like, yeah, I have different playlists for the characters of Holland and Mariah and Finn especially, because I think they come up the most. And sometimes I just get stuck on side tangents and need to be reminded how they feel and act and interact with one another and get that vibe back. So I'll turn on some music for a while and then just get back in the zone and start writing again.
Can you tell us one song that you would be mortified for any of us to know about?
There's, I think, Love Like Whoa is on that playlist. So it's like cheesy pop cutesy music is on there also. I don't even remember who sings that song. It's just so like bubblegum, gross, saccharine, and I'm ashamed that I like it.
Oh,
but
don't be ashamed.
It gets me in the mood to write like Finn with his little crush. I'm like, he's a sweet little cinnamon roll boy. It's a sweet song.
Music is really powerful.
Definitely. I think anytime I get into a funk, I just start listening to music, and I can usually get myself back to working pretty quickly.
What is the most underrated nerdy thing about you?
I like pens. I collect pens. My friends think it's so weird when they come to my house. I don't have any on this shelf other than this little one right here. I'm really big into the Mont Blanc writer series. So I have, I think, 11 of them now just on my other shelf of like F. Scott Fitzgerald, Edgar Allan Poe, Virginia Woolf, and they're each themed with like little trinkets and hidden things throughout the pen body and the cap that correlate to their different writing or like famous things that happen to them in their lives and things. So like there's a crow. I've got Gulliver's Travels with the ropes crisscrossing the pen for the Jonathan Swift edition. So I'm really into pens, and it's so weird. My dream, I've been signing all of my books with Mont Blanc pens because my dream is that one day Mont Blanc is going to take notice of me and they'll be like, we need to put this girl in an ad.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's my dream. I'm like, if I just keep signing these books with these pens, man, one day they may notice me.
Yeah, get that sponsorship for sure.
Right? That's the goal. Living the dream, or at least hoping to be able to live that dream.
That's so funny. I mean, there's nothing better than a good pen.
Right? That's why I have a whole collection. I've got drawers full of different pens for different purposes at this point.
What is the most random nerdy thing about you?
Ooh, what a good question. The most random nerdy thing about me. I don't know if it's random because I think if you know me for more than an hour, you'll piece it together, especially with everything I've just been saying about anime and pens. But I draw a lot. So one of the goals is to adapt the whole series into a multi-volume graphic novel set. I obviously want to be the one who draws at least 90% of it. I love graphic novels. I love art. I love drawing, painting. I'm teaching myself digital art right now. On the surface, it's not something I'm like flagrantly, I draw and like I'm into art, but it's definitely something I commit a lot of time to and I work on a lot. So I think that's probably it.
Wow, that's really neat.
Thank you. I mean, I enjoy it.
So you write, you draw, and you play piano.
Yeah, I'm like that all over stereotypical artsy person. I'm like super clumsy, unathletic. I'm bad at math and science. So all I got going for me is the artsy thing. So I've just leaned into it at this point.
From when I was researching you, you've started your own publishing company.
Yeah, it's called Morpheus Media. The goal is that maybe in a few years or so, I'll be able to take on other first-time authors. I don't think I would categorize it into specific genres. I would just want to be able to help other authors who are starting out and kind of a little lost, because the publishing game is like really hard. And if you don't know people, you're not going to get in the door. So if I could acquire the skill set and the availability and my time to be able to help other authors and things, I think it was going to be something really rewarding for me, because I think it's been such a struggle not having anybody to help kind of navigate alongside me to find my way through this absolute mess that is publishing and writing and being an author for a living. I really would love to be able to help other people and give them an avenue to publish their work and get their voices out there.
That's amazing. What inspired you to do that?
I got a rejection letter. It's actually right over here. You can't see it. I framed it. So I had been querying all these agents, and they were like, your book doesn't fit into any specific genre. Your book isn't what's popular right now because it's not fairy or dragon smut, which more power to everybody. I understand the appeal. I like smutty fan fiction. I'm not going to judge, but it wasn't like fitting in with what's currently popular, and it's weirdly between genres in a lot of way. It's not quite YA, and it's not really what people would normally categorize as like classical fantasy. It had a hard time for agents to be able to say, I can place this and sell it. And then I didn't have a strong social media presence, so I couldn't even come in and say like, well, I've proven that I'm marketable myself. So I was just kind of awash in the sea of not knowing what to do. And I think with social media and things like that, it's made publishing and writing such an unfair game, because it's no longer about who's telling a good, meaningful, impactful story, and it's more about, well, this person has 1.5 million followers on TikTok, so we'll publish their book instead. So the merit, I feel like in a lot of ways, has gone away from it, and the craft and the art of writing has really left, and it's kind of something that I just feel very passionate about bringing back. I think that's also probably why I don't read a lot of fantasy books. I like classical books because I don't particularly like reading. First person is not my cup of tea, and then I don't like written works that are written kind of with a modern casual vernacular. I want my writing that I'm reading to be flowery and beautiful, and I want to be able to imagine these images, and I want something that has a bunch of layers that you can keep peeling back and things. Modern fantasy just hasn't really been for me, or even classical fantasy. I'm not a big Tolkien fan either. So I think it's just something I'm very passionate about, kind of restoring the art to creative writing and literature and things like that. Which sounds so pretentious, actually, but I think that it's so beautiful the way Edgar Allan Poe writes compared to what we get nowadays.
What I love, though, is that you took this rejection and you didn't let it stop you from following something that you're passionate about. And not only did you write this book, but you also started this company to pursue your passions even further.
One of the big driving forces for me that I learned really quickly, I'm going to butcher the quote. I don't have it in front of me, obviously, but it's the quote that the difference between winning and losing is that losers stay down when they're knocked down, but winners get back up. And I'm a very competitive person. I like to succeed. It's the Slytherin in me. I'm very ambitious. I want to get things done. I want to win. So getting that rejection letter is like, okay. And then I got 10 more, and then I got 10 more. And I was like, well, if this isn't the way through, if you're not going to help me, I will just forge my own path. I'll do it myself. So like you said, like I wrote the book, I created the publishing company. It's a actual LLC, paperwork and all that jazz. I did the book covers, I did the chapter cover art, I did the fonts. So I had to learn how to do graphic design essentially. So I've done all the marketing materials, the signage, the posters, the videos. So I've just become like a jack of all trades, wearing a lot of hats. And I know I'm not the best at it, but I can at least say it's 100% mine. I've done this, and I'm really proud to be able to say that nobody has carried me to the finish line. I've been, stumbling my way there all by myself.
Can you tell us a summary of what the book is about?
Yeah, so it is a coming of age story, or at least book one is, about Prince Fynneas, who had spent his entire life up until the age of 12, secluded up north away from the rest of the royal family. He has no idea who these people really are. He's only ever heard their names in passing. And when he turns 12, he's going to go to the Montmorency Academy of Military Arts, which is on a tropical island. So his father and his older sister take him down south to the capital, where he meets the rest of his family and his cousin Holland, who is also going to be going to his first year at the academy. And it's really about Finn and Holland finding their place not only in their family, but in the world, and accepting what their roles are as princes with different stations, Holland being the second born son of the king and Finn being the king's nephew. So neither of them are slated to be the king. So it's accepting they're never going to be the ones ultimately in charge, but what their leadership roles were going to be like, and establishing a friendship with the kids who are also going to grow up to be leading the country, because everybody who goes to Montmorency is the son or daughter of nobility. So these are all the people who are going to be lords and ladies and who are going to be generals and admirals and things. So it's Finn and Holland really establishing that relationship with the people who are going to grow up to be their greatest allies one day.
What a wonderful summary.
Thank you.
Tell us about your journey into fandom, and if you want to specifically talk about your writing fandom or writing this book, that's totally cool too.
I think like my journey into fandom, definitely, I was a late bloomer. I really stifled my love of things because I was that nerdy kid who got picked on a lot. I wasn't athletic. I wasn't pretty. I wasn't charming or outgoing or social. So I was like this weird, bookish, scrawny nerd. So I tried really hard to kind of tamp down that side of myself a lot so I could fit in more. It didn't work. But in my 20s, when I, finished college and moved out, and I lived in a different state from my family for the first time. So I was really by myself as a young adult, forging my own way at this point. For like the first time in my life, I kind of just stumbled back into things I liked as a kid, and I picked up Harry Potter again. And I liked Harry Potter when I was young. I loved it as a young adult. It spoke to me in such a different way, and it really resonated with me as like, okay, well, if J.K. Rowling can do it, it's possible. I have this degree in writing. I have that foundation. I had a good education. So I have things going for me that would help me already have a leg up when I'm going to eventually pursue being a writer. And then falling into the Harry Potter fandom, especially on YouTube, and especially watching the Super Carlin brothers has been a big influence on me. Watching their videos and their deep dives not only really helped foster this growing love and appreciation for the Potter books, but also this desire to think maybe one day in 10 years people will make videos about my book like that, and they'll do deep dives and theories and things, and that really spurred me on. And then this summer I went to the Harry Potter London exhibit in the studios in Leeds, and I saw everything. I broke down crying at least 3 times. 3 is probably generous. It was probably more than that. And I was with my mom, and it was one of the most meaningful things my mom ever said to me as we were there. And there's like an opening scene with J.K. Rowling talking about the books and a quote, and my mom's like, that could be you one day. And I'm like almost gonna cry. Like, it just means so much to me that like the Potter community exists and everybody embraced magic and things. And then that, oh my God, I'm gonna actually cry. That my mom was like, you could do it too. And like maybe one day people will look at your books the same way.
Is it wrong that I want to encourage you to cry?
I'm such an anti-crier. I'm around Hufflepuffs all the time. My dad, my dog, my boyfriend, don't tell him, but he is. And they're all like so open with their emotions. And I'm like, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. People must not know we're overly sensitive. Just knowing that an entire generation of people embraced magic like that is just so awesome.
So what has it been like for you to start writing and to have people reading your book? By the way, and posting on social media that they're reading it? Like, that's really cool.
It's insane. In the past 2 months, it's really picked up. I mean, book 1 came out in 2021, and now all of a sudden I've got people on TikTok messaging me that they picked up the book in a library and couldn't put it down. And I'm getting these 5-star reviews, and people are opening the PR book boxes that I've been sending out and showing such genuine like enthusiasm to get into the book and read it. It's like exactly what I always wanted, and simultaneously the strangest thing in the world to have random strangers come up to you and be like, I really liked your book, or I saw this TikTok. My friend was just in Mexico and she was reading the book and she texted me and she's like, you won't believe what happened. This woman at the bar saw me reading it and she's like, I just saw this book on TikTok. I just bought it on Amazon. I'm so excited to read it. And my friend's like, oh my God, that's your book. It was so weird. And then, like I said the other day, a woman from my hometown in Texas who I don't know, like perfect stranger, never met her before, was like, yeah, I picked up this book in Fort Worth in the library. And I was like, I didn't even know it was in the library in Fort Worth. That's insane. That's so cool. But it's also like a weird adjustment to essentially slowly getting what I've always wanted, at least in a trickle down form at the moment. It's an adjustment to say, oh, that's my book people are talking about.
Yeah. It's so funny as you're saying that, I'm thinking, how do you get a book into the library?
I don't know. I mean, like over here where I live in South Florida, I went to my local library and there's 6 libraries in the county and they're like, well, if you bring us the book, we'll put it on the shelves. And I'm like, great, here's 6 books, 1 for each library. I know my book is in the libraries in my area, in my county, but for it to be in Texas when I'm over in Florida, I just thought was absolutely insane. Like I didn't know that they did that. And I think it's so cool to see that somebody just like randomly picked up this book and loved it and then gave me a 5-star review. It was so nice.
That's amazing. So I've been a reader my entire life, and the thought and the concept of writing a book has always been so huge to me. Like to think like somebody would sit down and write a book. It's just a huge task that I would never thought I would be able to do. And I wouldn't necessarily say I'm a writer, but something that I was thinking about as I got your book and I was reading it and I was reading about you and how you started this publishing company. It's like, well, wait a second. Somebody could really just sit down, write a book and publish it. And it's a legit book. It doesn't have to be this far away fantasy that some people might think it is.
Yeah, I think as much as I hate on modern technology and social media and things like that, I think that it is nice that there's no longer that gatekeeping to publishing. Obviously, there's like pitfalls if you're going to do it yourself. You don't have a big publishing house behind you to pay for things, and it's not cheap to go it alone. And obviously, you don't have like a PR person, and you have to do most things yourself, and constantly getting emails that say, we don't want to do this with you, or we don't want to talk to you, or people just ignoring your emails. It kind of tears away at you a little bit, but if you have a story to tell and you really want to tell it, you're going to find a way. And when you have that mentality of no matter what, like I'm going to do it, failure is not an option. I mean, it's going to take a while. Like I said, book 1 came out in 2021 and now it's 2024. And all of a sudden people are like, oh my God, this book exists. 5 stars, 4 stars. We really love it. So that was 3 years that book was out before people started saying, oh, we really like this. And it started to finally gain some traction. But if there's a will, there's a way. And if you want to take on the burden of starting your own company and doing all that paperwork and keeping track of expenses, and I think that's another thing that people don't realize is the business side of things. It's not like you just wrote a book and you're done. I mean, you can, and you can publish it and give it to your family, but if you're going to make it a career, you got to do the business side of things, which is, I don't think comes naturally to a lot of artsy people. It certainly doesn't for me. So that's been definitely a learning curve.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So it came out in 2021. When did you start writing?
I think 2019 I started it, or 2018. And it took about 8 months to get that first draft done. And then another few months with me reading it and my editor. And then my editor and I going back and forth over what to keep, what plot lines needed to be there, what was just superfluous fluff. And then hashing that out, which was a battle in and of itself. And then getting the book out there, learning how to make the covers, doing all of that. So it took a while, but when I was writing book one, that was my full-time job. That's what I was doing all day, every day. If I wasn't writing, I was doing the art or coming up with how to incorporate this font that I liked and figuring out the color scheme and the brand colors and all of these things that people don't tell you about when you sit down to write a book for the first time.
How did you get the idea?
Have you watched the show The Crown?
No, but I've heard of it.
Okay, so in season 1 of The Crown, I was watching it with my mom and my grandma, and there's a flashback to Prince Philip being at school in Scotland, and it was like this really rugged school, and they're like, we don't care that you're a prince, you're gonna like do things just like everybody else. And he's running this obstacle course, and he's covered in mud, and he's slogging these bricks or stones or whatever they were back and forth, and it was just like really intense. So I thought it would be really cool to have a book that has that fantasy academia setting with a prince. And so I have two princes actually, where the story isn't about them being princely. It's very much, you're the prince, but while you're here, we don't care. You're just like everybody else, and you're going to have to toughen up. And so it's like you have all these people from really posh, hoity-toity, noble families in the royal family, and they're sending their children to like Murder Nightmare Island to go toughen them up. And I think the juxtaposition between what you assume like courtly ladies and lords should be like versus these 12-year-olds out in a jungle with a knife trying to not get eaten by fairies is really kind of fun, because there's no resting on your laurels. It's a very much like, you came from this great family, but here we're not using your last name. You're just you, and you've got to stand on your own 2 feet. And I think that's a really cool message also that I got from The Crown, where Prince Philip's like, didn't matter, I did it myself, so you got to do it yourself. And I don't think you see that so much in books. It's a lot of helping. I mean, there's a lot of found family and friendship and everything, but I think the concept or the theme that it doesn't matter what your parents have done, it doesn't matter what your siblings have done or your grandparents, you still have to be able to do things on your own and stand up and get it done and weather the storm all by yourself. And that's kind of the theme of book one. You got to stand on your own 2 feet. And just because your father or your uncle is the king, you still have to be strong enough to be able to say, this is what's right, this is how I'm going to lead people, this is what we're doing, and then get it done. Because you can't expect people to fight for you if you can't fight for yourself.
Oh, that's so powerful. How would somebody know if the Fynneas Fog fandom is right for them?
I think it's right for most people, but that's probably just my marketing statement coming to mind immediately. I think if you're a competitive person, you would like the aspect of there's a lot of competition, but it's not only competition with others, it's a competition with yourself. Like I said, you got to be able to stand on your own 2 feet. I think if you think of yourself as a bit of an outcast or are a bit insecure, Finn is a great protagonist to latch onto. He's not a vanilla everyman. He has a personality. He has a very strong personality, but he's also a deeply insecure character. And those insecurities come out in unfortunate ways. You know, he doesn't do everything perfectly. He cries, he yells, he gets into fights with the other characters, and he grows up. So it's a great, even if you're already an adult or you're a later teen, just because Finn's 12 doesn't mean you can't relate to the hardships of like, you have to go meet new people. We have to meet new people all the time at work or whatever we're doing. And, you know, meeting new people, acclimating to a new surrounding, trying to find your place in the world. So if those are things that kind of resonate with you, I think it'd be a great story. Plus, it's like a fun tropical read, man.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of them.
And I would say if you want to get ahead of the trend before everybody on Book Talk has read it and you haven't, read it now.
Exactly, man. Hop on board the Fynneas Fog hype train
for real
before it's like full speed ahead. You could say you are one of the originals before one day we get merch and Hot Topic. That's the ultimate goal.
Oh my gosh, Hot Topic.
Yeah,
memories.
that's maybe one of my other nerd things is every time I walk past a Hot Topic, I'm like, one day they'll have black and red shirts in there for Fynneas,
Yeah,
and it'll be a
it
thing.
would totally fit in there.
It would definitely fit. It's like despite its tropical setting, it definitely has those late 90s, early 2000s gothic underworld movie type vibes. I mean, a bunch of the characters wear leather outfits despite the fact that they live on a tropical island.
So if anybody from Hot Topic is listening, please reach out to Brooklyn because it would be such a good fit.
Oh my god, perfect fit. You'd have young tween-age girls in there fawning over some of these characters. They're tailor-made for Hot Topic girls.
Something else that you brought up that I was thinking about is the whole process of editing. I can't imagine writing something and then having to change the plot line and then maybe even rewriting parts of it. That seems so daunting.
It's, I guess, not so much daunting, although it definitely is tedious and mundane at the best of times. But it's hard to not be precious with what you've done. I cut out a 40,000 word plot point.
Oh my God.
So anybody who ever says the book is too long, it's 40,000 words shorter than it used to be. So I cut out this whole plot line about there being a coup and we're summoning demons. There's a whole thing like that that's just gone. So editing is super important. You're always going to miss stuff, which I find ceaselessly irritating, is that people are like, I noticed. I'm like, I know. Come on, guys. I found mistakes in books like published by Bloomsbury. So it's going to happen to everybody.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I think in terms of like a developmental edit, and I guess for people who don't know, a developmental edit is when the editor goes in and works on the story, not grammar or anything like punctuality. It's punctuation, sorry. It's about story, character, development, pacing. That's a developmental edit. Those are so hard.
Yeah.
Because it's so hard for you to write a beautiful scene of people talking and the editor be like, okay, but we can't have talking for 11 pages. Like, we gotta go. It's already a slow burn beginning. We can't just sit around a tea room for a while. And it's like, oh, I know, but it was so nice. And then deleting those words, you just feel like it's okay. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna read better. But it still hurts a little bit.
I bet. Yeah, I would be very attached.
You're very attached to what you've come out with, and it's so sweet and precious, and you're like, I can't. And then somebody's like, you throw it outside, close the door, you're done, just moving on. It's rough, but it is absolutely necessary.
How has writing these books changed your life?
I think it's definitely instilled more confidence in me.
Oh.
Like I said, I was that kid who got bullied. I wasn't athletic, I wasn't charming. I was in theater, I loved acting. But we only ever did musicals, and I can't sing and dance to save my life. So I never got parts. So things like that, really weighs on your confidence as a kid, and you kind of grow up to be an awkward, very introverted, insecure adult. And then writing and then seeing the feedback people have given me and seeing people talk about how much they love the book and the writing style especially is really heartening and has really helped bolster my confidence a lot more. When I went to my first writing event with other authors at like a Books and Brews thing, I was so nervous and I didn't feel like I belonged there. And then I sold out. And people loved it. People liked the cover. People liked my elevator pitch I gave them. I sold out of my books and it was the coolest thing. And then the good reviews started coming in and then more word of mouth and it was getting more traction. And then especially, like I said, in the last few months, it's really been picking up. So that's kind of like a confidence in me that I hadn't had. When I was writing book 2, I was just a nervous mess. I was terrified people were going to hate it because it's so different than book 1. I felt so worried all the time and it took so much longer to write because I didn't go in with as much gusto because now I was like, okay, well, I put out book 1 and people have seen what I'm capable of. What if it's not as good? What if people hate the direction I've gone in? What if they don't like the characters anymore? And now writing book 3 with book 1 finally taking off, I don't care as much. Obviously, I want people to have a good opinion of the book and I want the word of mouth to continue, but I'm not as bogged down worrying about what people think because I have more confidence that I know what I'm doing and I know what my characters are doing and I know where the story's going and they don't. And that's what matters. So if I take a left turn and you think I should have gone right, there's a reason for it. You just haven't gotten there yet. And so now I have the confidence when I'm doing interviews to be able to say, instead of, oh yeah, I know I did this and people wanted this, I'm just like, no, I know what's going to happen. You don't. And it's going to be such a surprise when you get there and you understand why plot points A, B, and C have happened and you disagreed with it, because they're going to pay off and it's going to be fun for everybody. You just have to trust me, because now I trust me.
Oh, that's such a great line. Like, now you trust you. That's great. What do you think it was about the past few months that it started taking off?
I want to say I got myself into gear a bit more, but if it wasn't for the people around me who were just so supportive, I am so incredibly lucky to have family and friends who don't think that I have a stupid job. They think it's cool what I'm doing, and they've read the books and they're very supportive and they like it. You know, they're out there like, you know what, you should get on TikTok. And I was like, no, that's stupid. It's for Gen Z and I'm 30 now. And then I got on TikTok and it started doing well. And I was like, I'm having fun with it. And I think when you're having fun with it as the content creator for whatever content it may be, you know, art, music, writing, if you're having fun with it, not only are you going to put out better work, but people are going to see that you're having fun with it, and they're going to want to be in it with you. They're going to want to join the party. If you're having a good time dancing, nobody's going to think it's weird that you're having a good time dancing. They're just going to want to dance with you because you're clearly having a great time doing it. And I think kind of taking on that mentality that whatever, if it's cringe, it could be funny. People will like it. If it takes off, great. It's fine. TikTok's not my main job. YouTube's not my main job. Writing is. And these avenues of promoting it have just, I mean, it's just been great to see people reacting so positively, even to like crappy videos that I put out that I think aren't super funny or interesting. And just having people be like, oh, I'm so excited to read this book. This made me laugh. I want to see this. I really like the cover. So that's really keeping me going, is seeing the reaction that I'm getting. And the reaction, it's very cyclical. A good reaction, I work more, I put out more stuff, I get better reactions. And so I think it's really just started to finally click for me and come together. And it's going well. And I don't want to jinx it or anything, but it's just really cool to see how people are responding to things.
Yeah, I think people really respond well and appreciate when other people are just genuine and themselves, because we could sense when somebody's putting on a performance.
I think that authenticity really draws people in.
100%. When I was first starting this podcast, I was speaking to, he was my second guest on the show, Andrew Sims, about, you know, just trying to get some feedback and tips. And the number one thing he said to me was just be genuine and be nerdy. Like, truly embrace who you are with this stuff, and that will come across. So that's what I've been trying to do.
I mean, you've been succeeding. I binged all your episodes this week.
Thank you.
Your conversation about Neopets, I was like, well, I was never into Neopets, but this is very interesting, just because y'all sounded so invested in this conversation. And it was just like old friends chatting, and it was so real and genuine and authentic and sincere. There was no fronts being put on. It wasn't a sit down, tell me about your life story, and here's my question A, B, and C. It was just such a nice casual conversation you guys did, and I think that's really the strong suit of your podcast, and I've really enjoyed listening to it.
Aww.
I think all your guests have been so cool. But that chill atmosphere of let's just talk and be people and nerd out about things is so awesome.
Thank you so much. That really means a lot to me. I'm so glad that you're feeling that, because that really is what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to have fun.
I think that vibe totally translates. Aww. Like, it is a fun listen. I didn't even realize I'd gone through 3 episodes. I was just driving around doing errands, and I was like, oh, damn, another one's over. Okay. So I think you're doing great.
Thank you.
It's awesome.
Thank you. I know I've had some pretty awesome guests. I'm really, really happy with it. And now you're my next awesome guest.
I was like, when I was looking at it, I was like, I don't know where she's getting these people, but they are so cool. And now I'm here. And I was like, okay, I guess I get to be cool now too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's, oh my gosh, finding guests. So a little behind the scenes sort of thing. I like to record a bunch of episodes at once. This way I'm not panicking every week. Like, do I have an episode ready to come out? I like to bank them up. But then what happens is I don't want to bank up too many, because then it feels like there's too long of a gap between the recording and the episode coming out. And that just doesn't feel good for me either. So like I had a bunch, and then I was like, oh no, I need to schedule a bunch. I was panicking. I'm like, nobody else is going to want to be on my show. What am I thinking? And then within just like 10 minutes, I had 5 more episodes scheduled. So yeah, that's been fun. So if anybody is listening and you think you would be a good fit to be on the show, email me and let's talk about it.
Yeah, email Morgan. She's super nice.
Thank you. So I might not be the best with the responding to emails. So Just to let you all know that I'm trying my best. I read the emails and then I mark them as unread so I never forget about them. Feel free to follow up, but yeah, thank you.
Yeah, definitely. I've enjoyed it. I think it's a really great podcast, and you've had such a interesting array of guests. It's fun.
Yeah. One of my worries when I was starting is that people wouldn't necessarily be interested in it because every episode would have a different theme. And I was really trying to emphasize more of our stories of being nerdy rather than the actual topic. And I think that's been helpful for people to listen more about that rather than the specific fandom.
Yeah, I think because you had on the Mugglecast people, Neopets girl, fantasy fangirl. So it's been such a weird array. I love it. And I'm like, I didn't know there were things to be nerdy about that I didn't already nerd out about. Like I said, the Neopets one, I was like, who knew this was a thing still? Like, I'm going to have to look into this. And then obviously, like, I was in the Mugglecast too. So I thought that was just the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that was a dream. If you haven't listened to the episode, go back and listen to me tell Andrew Sims I used to have a crush on him.
I laughed so hard. I was listening to that one while getting ready to do this podcast. So I'm like doing my hair and I'm like, you know what? That was ballsy. She told him. Good for her. So I thought it was funny. His reaction was great. I thought it was a great episode you guys did together.
Thank you. Oh, I love how this has just turned around to complimenting the shows.
Anytime.
What does being a nerd mean to you?
I really think, I'm going to take our conversation full circle. When I was a kid, like I said, I really pushed down a lot of my hobbies and interests because they weren't what was cool. And I think being a nerd is just embracing whatever you like. Like, do you have a hyper focus? Awesome. Lean into it. Do it. Don't let people tell you that's weird. I mean, it might be weird, but if it makes you happy, that's what matters. And that's totally awesome and just wonderful. And if you like magic and you're in your 30s, that is perfectly fine. Do you like mermaids? Wonderful. Neopets, apparently. Fine. Whatever your bag is, like if that's what makes you happy and you have fun doing it, and obviously it's not hurting anybody else, nerd out about it. Like dress up as characters, read the books, watch the movies, listen to the music. I think that's so cool. I think there's nothing more attractive or charismatic about a person's personality than when they're just glowing with that enthusiasm for something they really love.
Yeah, that's so true. Showing that passion and embracing it and sharing it with others.
If you have a passion for toothpicks, but you come in there just like wilding out about toothpick architecture or something, I'm going to sit down and listen because now I want to know why you're so excited about it. And I think it's so translatable to, it's how you get people into things. It's how you get like AO3s or fanfiction.nets going back in the day, is you just had these people who really embraced that they liked it and they didn't care, and they built a community and they wrote stories and they dressed up and they had discussion boards. Now we have Discord. I think that's so cool. As I've gotten older, I've embraced it. I do not care about being cool. I'm like, whatever, I'll be that person just hanging out with my Harry Potter book at 45 or something. I don't care. Like, this is me. I like magic and wands and unicorns and things. And I just think that's so cool. And I think that's what being a nerd is just embracing it. Embrace the weird.
Yes.
Let your freak flag fly.
Embrace the weird.
Definitely. It's my life motto at this point.
Ooh, I kind of like that. Maybe that'll be part of the title of the episode. For this week, my geeky recommendation is that I need you all to email me some geeky recommendations because, as I mentioned before, I tend to record a lot of episodes at once and sort of stack them up. And then I start panicking, thinking, oh no, I don't have any more recommendations. How am I supposed to think of a bunch of recommendations at once? So I would love for you all to email me what you think I should check out and then suggest on the show. You can email me your recommendations at thatnerdthingpod@gmail.com. Brooklyn, what is your recommendation to help people embrace their nerdiness?
My suggestion would be stop caring. Nobody cares if you're cool. That's not a thing. Cool is subjective. If you have friends or a community that likes the same thing, congratulations, you're now popular. It's just do what you want, and like what you want to like. If it makes you happy, go for it. Watch the show, watch the movie. That's what matters. Be happy. As somebody who really kind of suppressed that for a long time, I really wish I had it. And I'm so happy as an adult that I get to embrace the weird. For a recommendation, out of left field, has nothing to do with anything we've talked about. I love Criminal Minds. Not even the new one. I like the old mid-2000s Criminal Minds. I will watch it over and over if I'm not working Or if I'm stuck, I'm like, turn on Criminal Minds. I already know who did it. I know why. I could give you the behavioral analysis breakdown at this point. I still love that show. To, again, take it full circle, that was one of the things I geeked out about in high school, and that's how I met one of my high school best friends who I'm still very good friends with. She wanted to be in the FBI. She turned out to be a cop now. She's a cop in Texas. If you're watching this, hi, Marky Mark. But like, we would talk about Criminal Minds, and now we're both 30, and we still will snap each other and be like, I'm watching Criminal Minds. Do you remember this episode? And we're both rewatching it. We didn't decide together to do it. We just both inexplicably decided, yeah, we're gonna start rewatching it from the beginning for no apparent reason. And we've nerded out about it, and it's really nice to be able to have that bond with somebody nerding out about something completely random, but you both really like it. I think that's what's really important. If that's what makes you happy, to quote Marie Kondo, if it sparks joy, just, keep it.
I've never seen Criminal Minds.
How did you make it through the 2000s?
Gosh, I know. I have guests giving recommendations, and I'm just like, my list of things to check out is growing, and I'm like, I don't know if I could, watch all this, read all this. It's a lot.
I mean, if Criminal Minds is too dark for you, I will also say to everybody listening, I also love NCIS, but also only from season 1 to season 18, and then we're done. The rest of the seasons mean nothing to me.
Oh my gosh, how many seasons are there?
I think they're on season 21 now.
Wow.
It's the show that won't die. And it's also just like Criminal Minds, where it's very formulaic. You know what's going on.
But again, comforting.
It's so comforting. I will sit and turn, like I said, I'll turn it on whenever. I'll be writing a chapter about children fighting to the death and be like, I wonder what naval-related crimes have been committed today, and just rewatch an episode.
Brooklyn, where can people find you?
All over the place now. I have gotten very active on TikTok at the Brooklyn Q, or the real Brooklyn Q. Just search Brooklyn Quintana. You'll find me.
Or you can find the links in the show notes.
There you go. That's probably so much more efficient. I'm on Instagram as well. You can follow me, and then the book has its own Instagram. That's official Fynneas Fog. I'm on YouTube, Brooklyn Q. I'm trying to get better at actually posting on YouTube. And then my author site, brooklynquintana.com, is where you'll find updates and links to other podcast appearances I've done, YouTube interviews, and live events and media coverages.
Brooklyn, thank you so much for being here and for being on the show. You were the first person to email me asking to be on the show. And when I got that email, I was like, did I make it? Like, somebody actually wants to be on the show? That's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, when I was told, through our vague mutual connection that you were having this podcast, I was like, well, hell, I don't know what she's going to talk about, but I'm a nerd and I wrote a nerdy book. So I'm just going to email her and shoot my shot. And I am so happy that you invited me on. I had so much fun. You are so fun to talk to. And I appreciate you letting me embrace the weird.
Oh, thank you. I love that. And when your books blow up and they are super popular, I want to have you back on so we could talk about what that has been like for you, because I know it's going to be a whole new journey.
Oh, definitely. I mean, fingers crossed it happens.
It'll happen.
Within the
It's
next
so
year.
good. It's so good.
Thank you. I mean, I have, like I said, failure's not an option. It's the Slytherin in me. It's got to happen. Yeah. But hopefully it happens soon and we could talk again about it and things will have changed drastically.
Love that. All right, everybody, if you could please rate and review That Nerd Thing on whatever podcast platform you're listening to the show on. It really does help with getting the word out there. And it makes me so happy to log on and to see new ratings and reviews. It means so much. And again, please feel free to email me all of your nerdy thoughts or geeky recommendations at thatnerdthingpod@gmail.com. You can follow the podcast on Instagram and TikTok at thatnerdthingpod. And be sure to share the show with your nerdy friends. And remember to embrace your weirdness. See you next time.